Hey, you there. Before the show starts, I just want to say thank you for clicking on my humble show. And are you a musician? Or do you just have a cool story to tell? We're always looking for interview subjects and guests for the podcast. Check out our description for our email address and social media links and contact us if you're interested. Thank you, and on to the show. Welcome to the Nausea River podcast. I'm Theo Morgan, and I'm not a musician. Not even a little bit. But I surround myself with music anyways. Recorded, live, wherever I won't get in trouble for it, really. It's easy to feel like an imposter for this. I bet musicians would tell me I'm being too hard on myself, and they're right. The only issue is worrying that I'm not appreciating music on the quote-unquote correct wavelength, or even the existential dread of wondering what I'm doing here at all. But to me, music is about feeling and the senses, the ringing in your ears after a show and the chill down your spine when the tempo picks up, the mini-movie in your head set to your favorite song. They can make a festival around that, you know? Enter Somergloom. Starting in 2021, Somergloom is an annual festival in Somerville, Massachusetts, with a broad focus on dark music. The name certainly promises doom metal, and it wouldn't be false advertising on their end either. But they're open about the variety in their roster. They embrace it. I went for their Saturday show only due to work and family commitments, and still witnessed everything from doomy hippie rock to fast-paced post-metal to solo singer-songwriter. This was my first ever Somergloom, though I was aware of their existence since their inception. There were a lot of shows I missed over the past few years, for as many reasons. It wasn't down to a lack of name recognition either. While the fest aims for smaller and often local acts, I'm not completely removed from those close to home. I recognized dysthemia, at least. So even this year, with a lot of my anxieties and ailments easing up and letting me touch grass again, I waffled on whether to get the $35 pass for a day of Somergloom. And in the 11th hour, they announced Oldest C for their Saturday show, which made the choice for me. Oldest C was not the first act of the day. They sat in the middle, third of six on the main stage. But in my heart, they were the headliner I arrived for, and the epitome of gloom. Glacially slow funeral doom, occasionally marked by the haunting vocals of frontwoman Sam Marandola. She and her band play the soundtrack for navigating an overcast, flooded world on your DIY boat. Oldest C are a rather new band, having been formed in the 2020s and so far releasing an EP and a full-length. Their set list didn't seem to differ from the one they presented when opening for Have a Nice Life at Boston's Paradise Rock Club in July, but the vibe did. There wasn't a sense of world-ending misery when hundreds of attendees strained the Paradise's limits. 900 of us, give or take, in a world that hasn't split in two yet. Somergloom, while held at the roomy Arts of the Armory in Somerville, maybe cracked 200 at its peak on Saturday night, and it was reached well after Oldest C had left the building. The distance between me and the next person during their set was past muster in 2020, and it fostered a feeling of attending a festival at the end of the world, me and a select few survivors. This dystopian feeling of all the music is what unified Somergloom for me, even with a diverse set of bands on the roster. Even at its most positive, it was a party at the end of the world, exemplified by the first and final bands, Strawberry Coffin and Royal Thunder. Strawberry Coffin's fuzzy blend of Sabbath-inspired stoner doom and hippie rock sensibilities gives a sense of attending a basement party where you don't know the hosts too well, and the strangers surrounding you seem to know something you don't. Arcane knowledge passes you by in a smoky haze. It passes when the night ends, and you don't think it means anything until it's too late to stop it. The band is a classic bass, guitar, drums trio, and they all sing live, too. One must appreciate the skill it takes to be a singing drummer, and not even half bad at it on stage. They brought the most onstage banter to the festival, at least to announce songs and explain a little backstory, because they're playing before the world ends. When Royal Thunder took the final stage, whatever party was left had taken a dire turn. Faster, more minor key, and with the harsher, more strained voice of frontwoman Milne Parsons. They're firmly a hard rock band with nods to stoner and occult rock, though made heavier by the acoustics that night. Maybe out of context, they're not a gloomy act at all. I went in blind to the live show, like with most other acts that night, though I had a bit of a shock when I listened to a few tracks off their newest album. And I only say this as a lover, an appreciator, and a newly minted fan. You could have Royal Thunder open for the Foo Fighters, and no one would question it. But in the moment, Royal Thunder's performance, passionate and layered with sound, sounded like the climax to a fight, perhaps a futile fight, but when you're cheering for a good outcome to, and you stare into the sunrise with dried blood all over your torn clothes, a glimmer of hope amid hours of doom. Obviously, I wouldn't call this suffering. The organizers of Somergloom were good at more than just band selection. Despite its fully indoor settings at Arts at the Armory and boasting 2 stages, the sound control was impeccable. I didn't spend much time at the cafe, the secondary stage for the event, but thanks to careful handling of doors and crowds, it may as well have been hermetically sealed. And I was glad to catch a few songs from Kira McSpice in there. The Fig was excellent. The main stage, erected in a wide-open, 2-story room, had a great balance of room-filling sound and sonic clarity. I never felt the sound there was muddy or echoing. Some of it might have been a result of keeping the volume a little lower than the average metal show. But to be fair, that comparison doesn't say much. The music was perfectly audible, and all I felt was a little less ringing in my ears when I went to bed that night. Arts at the Armory also boasts a mezzanine section in the main performing space, and sound traveled very well up there. Much of the mezzanine was reserved for non-music vendors, but they also set up some seating there too. Benches, chairs, and even a couple of tables. I like to brag about how long I can stand for at a concert, but I relaxed a little for the Infinity Ring and Black Pyramid, the 4th and 5th acts of the night. Black Pyramid, the night's penultimate act, hail from Northampton, closer to my neck of the woods. Their style of doom metal heavily evokes the style of stoner legends Sleep. It even threw me back to when I saw Sleep live a few years ago, albeit without damaging my hearing as much. I'd accuse Black Pyramid of being derivative, but Sleep tours so infrequently that I'll take any heavy inspiration I can find. The trio are all great live performers. They have some banger songs, and as a bonus, their merch was the best designed at the row of tables off to the left. As far as I can tell, Black Pyramid have been around for longer than the rest of Saturday's roster, having been formed in 2007. Their music exemplified what I thought Somergloom would be when I first saw the posters, classic doom metal. I'm not mad about there being less of it, but something about Black Pyramid was comforting, even as I was losing steam during a long show. I'm not going to accuse any musician of being old, as you have to have some youthful vigor to get up on stage at all, but they seemed like the most wise and seasoned of the bunch, so to speak. A guiding hand through this mess of gloom. Things can be simple, if not particularly happy. The Infinity Ring was not a simple act on stage. The constant presence of trios, maybe a 4-man band or two, seemed like a given until they walked on stage with 6. They definitely proved that Somergloom could handle heavy sound in an unusual space. I actually unseated myself from the mezzanine out of awe. The sound was very layered, with keyboards and a live violinist to boot, and heavy from my vantage point. On record, their sound is less metal than I expected, and very post-rock, more akin to Godspeed You! Black Emperor meets Nick Cave, It's a lot more subdued and restrained there. But what can I say? I'm a big Godspeed fan and a sucker for any extra string instruments. Gloom, as a feeling, has a lot of close cousins, such as Dread, and the quickening guitar and wailing violin of the Infinity Ring brought on that downward emotional spiral, a world coming undone at the seams. Their visuals on the large projector screen above the stage of lo-fi black and white forests and static certainly helped the image come alive. I know it's a common feeling to have about the state of affairs nowadays. In the grand scheme of things, I think a better world is always possible, but I understand coming at it from the other direction. I didn't get a chance to talk to a lot of attendees of the festival and ask them these sorts of things. No one really wants that anyways while they're enjoying a show. So while Royal Thunder were setting up stage, I talked with a couple about the upcoming King Diamond show on Halloween this year instead. They're excited to go. And me, well, I never liked King Diamond. Going through both this year's roster and prior ones too, it says a lot about Somergloom that they're able to get both a high-quality selection of small, mostly local bands, and also a lot of repeat acts. The Infinity Ring and Kira McSpice are both veterans of the fest. I hope I don't have to eat my words here later, but it would imply that everyone is treated well, compensated as expected, and listened to. Few corners cut for what's ultimately a small, scrappy affair that will never get too popular. The fest changes locations every year, or at least has so far, though Arts at the Armory was perfect for me, and a part of me hopes they can keep it. I am a unique case as an attendee. I live about an hour away from the Boston area, and I can't drive, so please forgive the aside before I talk about my favorite Somergloom performance. Proximity to public transit and lodging is something I have to consider that most other people might not. Arts at the Armory is a straight, fairly flat stroll from Davis Square and its T-stop, and also less than a mile from Porter Square where the Wachusett Line commuter rail stops. It's near a lot of restaurants and stores if you didn't want to buy food at the cafe, though I wasn't very hungry that night. I bought a bag of almonds from Q's Nuts on Highland Avenue. If I left during Royal Thunder's act, I could have easily caught the last train back out west before midnight, though I decided against it and booked a spare room near Union Square. So when I grabbed my ticket to Somergloom, putting all the logistics up to fate, I did it thinking I would be there for my new favorite band, Old as Sea, and a bunch of lesser acts, worried it would be a waste of my $30, after a discount code and fees too. I've probably proven otherwise already, but I knew the festival was worth my time early into it. I nodded along to the music of Strawberry Coffin, and the second act was setting up stage. 2 guitarists, a drummer, and no live bass. No vocals either, making them the only instrumental act that night. They thanked us at the end of the set by shouting it out with only the power of their lungs. Enter Gira, a post-metal trio from Manchester, New Hampshire, and my jaw dropped. If you like Pelican or Russian Circles, you know what you're in for. To me, it's one of those genres I know I really like, but always forget about. Gira does what I like the most about post-rock and metal, and they build up into a climax, the same downward spiral of their stage mates The Infinity Ring, but more clangy and with a lot more direct metal influence, which you can hear on the album too. For me, it started slow. I was skeptical about the lack of bass. It seemed like a post-requisite for a doom and gloom festival. In true post-metal fashion, it started slow, but in a dreamy and ethereal way. And then the tremolo picking started. That's where it clicked. Gira were the best band of the night. Situated next to the hazy Strawberry Coffin, it was where the thesis clicked in this night of gloom, dread, and sheer bliss for fans of dark music began in earnest. Also, they had the most consistently staffed merch table of the night, and I grabbed a shirt. I felt bad for everyone else and linked to the Bandcamp sites for all acts mentioned. It's been a long essay about this festival. I've been blessed to have the time, money, and mental clarity to go to more shows now than ever before. And in case it wasn't obvious, I want to thank Somergloom for ending this summer season with an incredible show before we get into the giant wave of autumn tours across the United States. If you're in New England, it's worth a stop, and I'm confident they'll make next year just as special. It's going to be a long autumn here at Nausea River. I will be seeing you again soon to recap Day 2 of the Tough Luck Fest at Brighton Music Hall, coming up September 7th. We are also blessed with a lot of great full-length releases in the latter half of August, and I'm excited to give my thoughts on some of those. Until next time, I'm Theo Morgan, and I'll see you in the crowd.